right, here we are. We're back with an exciting new episode. It's coming at you. Holidays are...
I'm not sure why you're all of a sudden we're starting to overpromise here. Usually our standard is under-promise, attempt to over-deliver.
Yeah.
It is November 16th. The year is 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 730.
Yeah, it is, and it's a lost leader. Just click on the funnel. We'll get you right in the tube.
Yeah, our podcast is the Costco rotisserie chicken. We are the loss leader, which I'm almost positive is their loss leader. But no, it's another great day, another beautiful day. In the 70s, I think, here today in Overland Park, Kansas. Heading back down to Nashville tomorrow. Get an early start on Thanksgiving week celebrations. Well, probably a little bit more toned down this year, given the loss of Mimi. But heading down there Friday, really because. You won't even know who this is, and I wouldn't even know either in the last 2 years. But we're gonna catch the Preds Blackhawks game on Saturday because Hayden wants to see Connor Bedard play, who's supposed to be like the next like Wayne Gretzky. So we're going to that Saturday.
He's a young kid, right?
My mom. What's that?
He's a young kid, right?
Oh, dude,
I've heard about him.
He's like 17 or 18. He's so young. It's unbelievable, and. But yeah, he's like the next. He is like the next Michael Jordan or LeBron of hockey.
Is that still a hot ticket in Nashville? It's got to be the Hawks.
Oh, dude, it was. I waited because like from living there, like there's a ton of Blackhawks fans there. I mean, like way back when we got the Preds, like there was always and play the Blackhawks. It's always huge, but it's also Hockey Fights Cancer Day. It's right in my wheelhouse of time. Mm-hmm. Saturday, 1 p.m.
Oh, perfect.
Which is, dude, I know. That's like the 11 o'clock race start for you on a Sunday. I mean,
so you might be nodding off by the end of that one. It's
I know, that's right. It's going to be perfect. And then we're actually going to go see the Avalanche on Tuesday or Monday night. But yeah, going to have fun. Hope everybody's getting ready and excited for Thanksgiving week. Just a friendly reminder to stay flexible, have some fun, spend time with family, enjoy times with friends, reconnect. Have good conversations. If you need to go for a run or a ride or a swim, go one. Go do one. Especially if you're, not a huge fan of your in-laws or cousins. Have at it. Get you a 20-hour training weekend. Do whatever you got to do to survive. But yeah, for the most part, just relax and enjoy yourself. Hope everyone has a great holiday season. We'll be back next week, as usual, for a podcast. But if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the Triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general in terms of valuables. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Fantastic community, awesome people, solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes made to be way too complicated and confusing. It is a solid place to get actionable information from people who have been there and done that. We've got beginners, we've got people who've never done a triathlon, we've got people who've been on the podium in Kona. So we got everyone from both ends of the spectrum and in between. They're all willing to lend a helping hand or a comment, a few sentences or two to help steer you in the right direction. But that is it. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. But we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Ah, what a nice agenda. So, I'm a night owl.
Yeah,
for the most part. I mean, I don't know. I forgot what that personality type is.
You work the night shift of the business. You're the night shift guy.
Yeah, that 24-hour coverage. I can't remember if I'm like a wolf personality or a bear or what they call that, but I just, I gotta say, man, like this, the clock change stuff, I thought at first, I was like, all right, this is all right, because it's gonna, trick me into thinking it's later than it is, and it worked for a couple of days, but now I am all jacked up, man, because it's dark at 4:30 here, and by 7, I feel like it's midnight. I don't know where I'm at.
Dude, it's a total mind fuck.
Yeah, I'm having some trouble here with the sleep.
Yeah, I mean, dude, try having kids when the chime change. It's like it's a swift in the nuts.
I lay down and I feel I wake up at 11.
Yeah,
it's like, what?
I swear, like Hayden got home from school yesterday, and he was home for like 45 minutes. I looked outside, and I was like, it's dark. Like it's almost pitch black outside, which is ridiculous, but whatever. It's that time of year. Here we are. We were talking a little bit before the podcast, going through, our catalog of ideas for today. But I had one. I'm not sure if I discussed this in Tuesday's episode, or did I talk about it before the podcast. I had an athlete send me an article called Micro Quitting. That was in, I guess, one of the more recent magazines from Triathlete magazine. I think it's also been posted in Outside magazine. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But I was also kind of going through, yesterday. I'm sure people are gonna get tired hearing about my Mimi. But you know what? It's my podcast with you, and I can say what I want. But I posted. My mom was over there yesterday, and we talk. Listen, you and I have talked. This isn't news to us. We talk a lot about being resilient on podcast. We talk about it a lot just personally. We've always talked about it. And in fact, that's one of the things that we always discussed before we even started this, was just resiliency and how to make things work. And my mom was over at my Mimi's yesterday, kind of going through some of her stuff and starting to kind of like, go through that, what seems like a forever ending list or never ending list of things to do. And, someone passes away and going through their things and what you're going to do with stuff. And she was in her chair, next to it, her chair, right? Her Mimi chair. And she had her glasses and the sheet of paper, and it was titled Resilience Characteristics. There's about 6 of them bullet points on there. But one of them stuck out to me that we talk about a lot with our own athletes. And it was this. It says, they accept what they cannot change and focus energy on what they can, i.e. they rephrase a difficult situation and look for meaningful opportunities. And that is something that, as we, go into the next year and we're starting to make plans for, athletes are making plans for races. And they're not just, when athletes think about racing, they don't just think of the race itself. They think about, they should think about the time and energy that they have to train for that race, and then what their life looks like now. And you and I are perfect examples, right, of making plans and thinking one thing's gonna look like another. 2 years ago, we're sitting at a hub in Chattanooga that we love, that's super successful. You're living up top in a condo, and I'm, living, across the river. And now I'm in Kansas, you're living on the lake in Wisconsin, and here we are. Mm-hmm. Right. But we don't think of that, right? As athletes start to make plans for this next year. And I think one of the best things that we can do, right, not just as resilience, but looking at obstacles and then not looking at as an obstacle, right? As one of my favorite books, Obstacle is the Way.
That's a good
by
one.
Ryan Holiday. Yeah, I know you love that one.
I still have it. It's sitting in my room. It's readable.
I know you've got my original copy with like highlights and underlines and comments in the. But to be honest with you, it's a book that changed my life and probably helped me survive a really hard period in my life. But that's one of the pieces in it is how to look for opportunities within obstacles. And I think not every athlete, but most athletes, right, especially triathletes, I would categorize in that area of the perfect path, right? Things have to go a certain way. They have to be perfect. Things have to be set up. I can't forget my goggles. I got to have my watch for my swim. The ERG mode has to be working. Swift can't crash. I got to have my AirPods for the runs. Things have to sync. My pre-built workout wasn't uploaded. We have so many things, right, that can disconnect us from being able to do things. And I think when it comes to training and it comes to expectations for this year, I think one of the things and I've never done this in the past, but I think would be a great thing and a great exercise for us to do in practicing resilience and not just getting, I think we all get stopped in our tracks almost when the slightest thing gets in our way. Right. And I don't feel like I'm that way. I know a lot of people that are. That one slight deviation from the plan means like a total U-turn in the journey that they're on, or they stop dead in their tracks. They don't look for ways to make it, for lack of a better phrase, to make lemonade out of lemons. An obstacle is like a dead end, and it is a no-go, and we can't think beyond it. I think training wise, it always has to be there, right? Making something good out of a bad situation. But also when you look at your year and you're sitting here and you're going through the race counter of what I want to do in October and what do I do and what I want to do in May and which one's my A race and this is how my life looks now is right. You've got plan A, right? This is everything goes smoothly. I don't get hurt. I don't get injured. My job doesn't change. My relationships don't change. My kids are great. Everything's awesome, right? The chances of that happening are, not to be Debbie Downer here, but pretty slim, right? It's pretty slim. Something isn't going to happen in the middle, a lengthy sickness or an injury or a niggle or stress, periods of demotivation. So I think it's a great exercise and a great thing to think about. Like, yes, it's great to have that A, right? That A race with also that level A, like expectation. But I think it's also smart to not just plan, which is something that we do as a human race. Like we plan for perfect. Right? It's going to go like this. It's going like this. And then the first happens, we get totally off. But what I think is a great thing to do is plan for things to not go perfect. Right? Here's what I can do right now to set myself up for success for next year. Because, right? We talk about this all the time, that as a coach, I know you hear this too. Athletes I never hear from a more frustrated athlete than I do from the athlete that says that has 5-6 weeks of no activity, no training, totally unmotivated, maybe high stress, maybe things are going on, and then they get back into training for about a week, right, week and a half, and then something happens to derail them. They're so irritated and so mad that now that they finally wanted to get back into it, life is saying no, when previously life was wide open, right? Walk to the door, get your training done, but they were saying no. And so I think as we have this period of time, right, for November, December, January, we're all for flexibility. We're all about December rules, which we implement and have with our athletes. And you and I both take, like 2 to 3 weeks off in December of limited to any work to recharge our own body. And that's important, right? But I also think it's really important to just remember, is what you're doing right now, it's going to set you up for success later in the year. And that could be less training or more training, right? Or focusing specifically on one of the 3 disciplines, right? It could be also something as simple as focusing on body comp, right? I think that's something that everybody, could look at in some way, shape, or form is, I want to be a better runner or want to be a better rider or something, but I don't have a ton of time right now or really want to disconnect. Well, then instead of, training 10 hours a week, 12 hours a week, cut training down to 4 or 5, take a little bit of time away from the sport and really put that energy and that effort that you're usually putting in a swim, bike, run into the kitchen, into your fueling, into your diet, and maybe doing some research on how you can do things better, because body composition is an important thing, not for triathlon, but for overall health, right? How are we treating our body? And then as you look at the year, think like, all right, what am I doing to allow myself the best opportunity possible to not navigate and cruise control, right? Perfect scenario A. But what am I doing to equip myself with the ability, right? The skill set, the mindset, the emotional resilience, the physical strength to be able to handle, withstand, and then circumvent all the obstacles that are likely going to happen. And how am I setting myself up for success in that area?
Last night I was watching this. It was like a little mini documentary. I think it was from some company in Australia, but they were talking about the happiest countries in the world, and most satisfied or whatever. And to my surprise, they picked Finland. And The reason I was surprised is because, obviously it's cold up there, and it's and they actually showed their top 10 lists, and about 8 of them were really cold weather countries, and I was kind of like, all right, I'm gonna go watch this and see what's up. Of course, they were doing the plunging and sauna and all that shit, but one of the things that stuck out was, and what you just said about expectations, is they actually said, we don't have high expectations here, we have reasonable expectations. And that way, I just think it's kind of a more manageable way to do it. It's sort of like starting training right now and thinking about the podium next fall. It's like, what does that even do for you? I mean, unless you can sort of manifest that in a way that rolls into every single day on the way there, and understand that that's all a process and you're not there yet and it's going to take a while. So it's kind of like what you're saying. I mean, like, I think so many of us try to put together this long string of perfection going all the way to the podium next year when, frankly, me included, a lot of us struggle with just kind of nailing today. It's sort of like in a way that you get done and you're like, man, that was a solid day. I feel good. I'm energized, because even right now, I was saying, without my sleep, I can dream all I want about stuff like that, but until I can get comfortable and in a rhythm with simple things like sleep and just doing the right amount of prescribed exercise and energy expenditure, those are the kind of little things that can be the big challenge, and I think that it's so easy to have high expectations all the time, and there's nothing wrong with going after something you want in your life, but it seems like a much more practical way sometimes to just go about the grind and figure out the daily grind and the week, put together a day and then put together a week or whatever. And I don't know, I was thinking about something. I always tell my athletes this about when they're going into a race. It's like, I'm big on being in the moment and just kind of being where you're at, but I also warn them about being stuck in the moment. And I think sometimes that can be a big challenge, if you're just over concerned about something that's not even here, and it just sort of sticks around, and you can't get out of that mindset. So I don't know, man. It was just so interesting to me that Finland and all these countries up there are just allegedly really happy, and the concept of it's sort of like, I think we have a podcast called Aim Low or something like that.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that sort of philosophy is, if you wake up and you got, you sort of stuff your day with all these things you want to nail and you can't nail them, then does it have a little subconscious effect on you? Like, shit, today wasn't very good. So I don't know where that's going, but you know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. And I think, I don't know this, obviously I didn't read the study or know how they came up with that fact, but I have to imagine a lot of it is like, on a superficial level, like we don't know what the hell the weather's going to be like. How can we plan? We just wake up and plan. Yeah. Like, and I really truly believe that is like so many athletes, one of their biggest weaknesses isn't their ability, it's their inability to stay in the moment and not have unrealistic expectations, and then self-sabotage when they think they're not getting close on honestly an expectation that never should have come up, right? And I have athletes joke with me, all the time, and close family members and friends, and they're like, so that's your happy face. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pumped right now. Or aren't you? Or I'll hear phrases like, doesn't that make you excited? And
yeah.
And I have, and I am like, I wouldn't call myself a pet. I'm a realist. I am 100% a realist, and I will say things like, I will be excited or I will be happy when it's done, when it's complete, right? Like thoughts, promises, ideas. Imagine, things you imagine, like it could be like, even positive signs along the way that believe that you are heading in the right direction, right? Is, if you attach yourself to that and assume, then when you get to that end point, whether it's something personal, professional, or your hobby, and it doesn't end up that way, then your resentment level is so high and the down is so low that it really does change, again, the fabric of who you are and how you then approach things next time, right? If you irresponsibly and, without research and data and, objectivity, expect to, put in X amount of hours of training and then expect a result and don't take in any other factors and just assume that that's going to happen, even if you haven't done your due diligence and it doesn't happen, then the next time you do it, you're going to have that thought in the back of your mind that's telling you, you did all right last time and it didn't happen. And then you find yourself cutting corners because you're thinking, well, if I don't cut the corners and I go around, I'm still going to get the same results. Why don't I just cut corners? And it doesn't come from your ability. It doesn't come from your mindset. It comes from your motivation or dedication, commitment, whatever you want to call it. It a lot of times just comes from your expectation, right? That was invalid and, and not actually, set, concreted in any kind of substance. And then it also comes with attaching yourself to an expectation of this is going to be wonderful, or this is going to be fantastic, or this is going to be awesome because I want it to be. And that might sound like, oh, that sounds like a terrible way to live. I'm telling you, it's not.
Yeah.
Because I've been this way forever, been this way. I mean, obviously ever since I've been sober and getting out of treatment and going through like some really, really hard things in my life. And even some of the principles of the book I mentioned, The Obstacle is the Way, like I don't get really, really, really excited. Even like, example, I just did a swim camp and had 20 athletes come. I thought it went really well, but I always said, so how do you think camp went? How do you think camp went? How do you think camp went? And I thought it went okay, but I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure how it went. I need to hear. I need for people to tell me how it went. And I didn't think, oh, dude, it went awesome. It went incredible. I think I crushed it. I think everyone was pumped. And then you might get 20 compliments and then 2 constructive feedbacks. And then all you're going to focus on then is the constructive feedbacks. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, it wasn't that good. Right. And so I just think it's really important, like into looking at your season, look at the training you're going to do and look at how things go and right. Not get too high, but also don't get too low when things don't happen. Like in talking about making the best of missed opportunities. One of the things that I've been thinking about is, the races that I want to do and that I'm signed up for 2024. Obviously the last like week and a half has been a little bit tough on me personally. And I got some runs in while I was in Nashville, and then you got run camp coming up, and then I got Thanksgiving coming up, which is a lot of travel, and then going down to see Allie's parents, and then back up, and then we got run camp, then back from run camp, back here in Overland Park for 4 days, and we got our coaches clinic, and it's just like I look at the calendar, I'm like, all right, how can you plan to be successful, like legit successful? Not think I'm going to swim 4 times a week. I'm definitely going to try to get in 5 rides. Time for a bike block, and we'll do some running in. Like we got to get started. And I'm thinking to myself, that is totally irresponsible and not going to happen, right? Yeah. It's just too much, right? So what I've honestly told myself is going back to, the using energy in the best way you can is looking at the things that I've got on my plate and thinking, speaking of plates, is maybe pay better attention to what I'm putting on my plate. And from like an actual kitchen aspect, because listen, when I was in Nashville, it was nothing but potluck casseroles, food sent from somebody who knows somebody to help things out. And they're not delivering fruit trays and lean meats, people. They're delivering like the good stuff, right? The good, like the casseroles, the breads, everything. So I was feeling a little bit of fluffy when I got back home. And so what I've decided to focus on now is, all right, well, I probably can't put in 10, 12 hours, 13 hours to work on, to lean out and get a tremendous amount of fitness before run camp. But what I probably can do is be a little bit more diligent about what I'm putting in my body the next 3 weeks and just move to help dissipate stress. And that'll put me in a much better spot. That right there will put me in a better position once I get through the next 3 weeks, because they're actionable, they're attainable, and the things I can easily do, right? And I can know that I can do that without any huge deviation. Those right there are like the low hanging fruit, as you might say, where those provide the most opportunity for the least amount of things that get in the way of them happening. I can do short runs, right? I can go for a walk. I can eat right. That's just a choice, right? No one's gonna, if I fix a plate with, veggies and fruit and a lean meat, no one's gonna walk up and slap it out of my hand and put 19 donuts on it, right? I can control that. Or I could say, hey, you know what? I think I'm gonna pack my bike, pack my trainer, pack all my pool stuff. I'm gonna definitely try to get a couple hours a day. It's Thanksgiving. I have plenty of time, right? A couple hours here, a couple hours there. And then and then all of a sudden it gets interrupted. Then I realize that, I'm too stressed on other things, and then I've gotten nothing accomplished, right? So when you aim really, really high, a lot of times the return is that you don't get, 30% from it of your 100% that you wanted to get done, whatever it is, you get zero, because you want the goal, you want the completion, right? Halfway and percentages aren't what's going to get us there. One of the quotes in AA is, half measures avail us nothing. You can't do for us. I can't do it halfway. I can't just kind of have one drink today. I can't kind of have to do it halfway. I got to do it all one way. And I think that's part of my addictive personality, is has to be the whole way or none of the way. Right. And so I think when you trying to set yourself up for success and whatever it is, aim low, right? Like that previous podcast, and allow yourself these, opportunities to go a little bit higher, right? If and when it works well, right? Because you never want to give someone, in my opinion, or try to give them a year round and base their training and their planning on perfect scenario. Right. And that's where you get in trouble with listening to, endless conversations with pro triathletes, is that their life is so controlled and so like stressless, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have jobs. Most of them don't have kids. If they do have kids, they've got somebody to watch them whenever that's needed. They've got full support. They got it is their job. And it's just not the case for age group athletes. And I think that's where like a huge disconnect comes in on what they expect from themselves or what they see another person doing, right? It'd be like me comparing myself to another 40, 44 age group guy who's got a 9-to-5 job, no wife, no kids, no dog, lives in a condo, and that's it. Like our stress level is totally different, right? Availability, totally, not just life is different, but probably at the moment, what you want in a life, what's important to you, right, in life. Right? He's not caring about a relationship. He's not caring about spending time with a kid. He's not caring about a dog. He's not caring about, a business or athletes. 9-to-5 job, you don't have it till 9, then you leave it at 5. Right? But you still, like, you see people comparing themselves to that. And that's where it's like that comparison is the thief of joy, right? Or another podcast we've had where, great is the enemy of good. And you just compile that and compile that and compile that. And it really is no wonder and no surprise that so many athletes stop along someone else's journey thinking it's their own and then never get back on, right? Never hop back on the train to where they're supposed to go because they're on the wrong train, right? They're in the wrong car. They are, they're not, it's not theirs, it's someone else's. And there's a lot of things I think we could do to set ourselves up for success and also make the journey that much, more fulfilling and exciting and sustainable, right? It's not to create a bulletproof plan, right? That's based and created in a perfect schedule and a perfect life. It's offering a flexible outline that has a specific intent that allows for drawback and allows for you to press forward, right? Which is why, like, when I get questions all the time from prospective athletes or current athletes, and they ask about periodization, right? Or reverse periodization. We talk about season planning, right? You go base, build, and then you go into, in your race specific phase. And I think it's a good idea to have that model, right? But you can't make it a season, right? Because things happen. But I would say less than half of the athletes I work with, I'm able to even do that because their life is so ever changing. right?
Mm-hmm.
If that was your model, right? If you're a coach and your model is, I do, your normal periodization, or I'm a pyramidal in my periodization. I do reverse periodization. Well, then you're going to be, if you have an athlete who either consistently gets sick or has job changes, or their travels, whack, or their work hours are whack, or their relationships, they get sick all the time, their kids are stressful, and they're only able to put 2 to 3 weeks of training in a time, they take some time off, they get back to them, then they're going to be forever, for eternity, stuck in the same phase. Always. They're never going to get past the first phase, because that's not who they are. That's not the life that they have. And a lot of times that's not what they want to be. Right. And so when you get that, I'm like, I like to plan for the week. It drives people nuts sometimes. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes 4. But it's always changing. But in order to like, it's not that periodization is ridiculous, because it's not. But when you look at age group athletes, like, professional athletes, of course, right? They don't miss. It's their job, right? Totally different than the age group athlete who might have 8 to 10 hours a week, and a lot of times misses those and goes down to 3 or 4. You don't need any periodization. You just need to get the work done as consistently as possible, and probably have something like similar to like a set schedule that is, something that you can anticipate and therefore execute to the better, to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, we talk about this time of the year being important, and I think even on Training Peaks now it says, a good 2024 starts now or whatever. And I think that a lot of us get that confused with what that actually means, meaning it's a great time to stay active. Most of us don't, but you can't mess with nature, really. I mean, I'm up here, and literally when I'm going, I like to run in the afternoon, sometimes late afternoon. And if I go out at 4 o'clock and I'm on a 45-minute run, it's dark when I get back, and I mean, the sun is literally energy. And I think that when I say, don't mess with nature, I mean, winters are for sort of rest and recovery and that kind of thing. So there's a, the body, I think it's built in where, it tries to preserve energy, because winters are tough, and, you have to be strong, and you don't want to be run down. So there's a important fact in there that we just can't deny. I mean, certainly different parts of the world are different weather, but when it's getting colder, your body breaks down a little bit easier. So I think when we think about having a great year next year and why now is so important, it's important to kind of stay in the game. And it's so easy to not stay in the game, but you got to keep moving and doing little things. And like you're saying, I mean, not over pad the schedule and just be constantly in this, like, I can't keep up. And, I don't know. I notice it that certainly when it gets dark so much that it's just different, you can, when you're out in the sun, you got the energy, and then in the summer, you don't need to, reserve so much, fat store and stuff like that to kind of get through it. I just think it's built into our system. And so, like yesterday, when I was out running, I found this, I've kind of been thinking about it since last podcast, really about, living the life that you want to live, and being obsessed with filling your cup and fulfillment, not rather than all these goals that really maybe don't even matter to us, but it's just sort of like you set a goal, but like, what is going to fulfill you? And, yesterday I went out and running, and I have this area is still new to me. So I've had this kind of mild kid-like obsession about making my own trail around here, because we're partially next to a nature preserve, and there's not really trail. There's a little bit of trailing in there, and but I'm trying to figure out new paths and how I'm going to build my own little trail, really, without anybody even knowing about it. And it was this weird feeling. I wasn't running fast or anything, but I was really kind of just looking around at the terrain and being in nature, and it just felt so good to not have, quote unquote, a time goal or anything like that. But it just felt like I was really doing something for my soul or something, just to look around and see where I could take this trail, And I think that that's like something right now that we can do more often is just find those, because really when it boils, and I've always said this, I feel like what we do as aging triathletes is we just want that feeling again with that, to be like a kid. You know, I love reading your updates about Hayden, and I know that you probably find a lot of joy in seeing them get excited about the simple things in life when you're watching practices or games or whatever with kids. And that's the feeling that we lose because we're tied to a watch, or we're thinking about some crazy thing that we want to do, but we're just not out playing. And there's so much power in being out there just kind of doing something that you really want to do. Just carve it out and make your own niche with it. It doesn't have to be, you know, always so rigid.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, that's been the struggle of mine for, I don't know, the last 4 years of training. Right, as Hayden has gotten older, and obviously, like, you know, when you coach full time, I mean, you know, you do a great job of finding a way to at least race once a year. You know, I'm averaging like a half race every year, and I'll have periods where I just, you know, get on and I can do it. But one of the things that I know that I've struggled with is, you know, one, and it's not always the case, right? But you know, get that, you know, Hayden gets home from school and I want to be available. And some days, you know, he brings friends over and, you know, which is great. I want that for him, but I also like to be there. Like the other day, he was like, hey, you know, before school, he's like, hey, can we go outside and throw football? I was like, no, I got work to do, but I promise we can do it when you get home from school. And so when he walked in the door, he's like, are you ready? I was like, yeah, it's 3:50. And so I take a lot of pride in being able to do that, but also I'm very fortunate, right, that I can do that. But I also know that not every dad wants to do that. And then I look at how training is and what I would need to get done and how I want to perform when I do perform, right? I don't think I've ever gotten to that point, you know, for better or for worse, to where I'm okay just walking into a race and not knowing what's going to happen. I like to know that I'm at my peak fitness. I just do. Again, I don't think it's a bad thing. But I know from a training aspect, like, you know, I'm very, the one thing that I rarely give up is the run, right? Because I can, but I always struggle with the bike and the swim when I am struggling with training, because the bike, you know, in order for me to do it when I want to do it, to not do out, you know, long rides on the weekends and take time away, right, from the family and from Hayden, and just relaxing, right, is to, you know, it's mostly on the trainer. And then when I'm on the trainer, or the watt bike, then I always find myself still being attached, or at least within work is still is still on my periphery, right? Even if I'm doing a workout or I'm trying to zone out, it's still there, right? Because I have my phone with me, or I'm listening to music, or I'm doing whatever, and there's a text about work, right? Then I get an email. And so it's not the disconnect that I want it to be, because I'm still on the clock. I still got, you know, work to do, and I want to be done by 4:00, you know? So I resist that. And then I also get, like, you know, so that's why I think I've also started to play more tennis, is because it's a total disconnect, right? That I can go, like I went and played last night, left my phone in the car, you know, totally disconnected. And Hayden was like, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to tennis. He's like, why? And I was like, for the same reason you go to hockey. I was like, because that's, like, you know, as a coach and as a, you know, just like you, as a business owner, as a father, and as a husband, I was like, because it's the 1 hour of the day where people put in things into me, and I'm not the one putting things into them, right? And that's how you fill your cup, right? Same as he plays hockey and playing with his friends. And that's what we do, right, as triathletes. And so, you know, and then swimming is a difficult one, because when I get there, I love it. And because it's like running, it's a total disconnect, right? And I don't take my phone when I run. It doesn't make people happy, but I don't. And then obviously, you know, you don't have it when you swim. You're totally disconnected. And I always feel better when I do it, but it's, you know, it's a time thing. Like, I got to, you know, get myself to the pool, and I got to do the same thing. Same struggles. I, you know, preaching the choir. None of these are excuses. It's that I think I'm still finding myself in that in that mode of, what works for me, what works for my life, what works for my drive and desire, and ultimately like my goals, or do I even have any goals, right? And what do I want them to be, and then how can I make that work? And am I still trying to fit, a round peg in a square hole? With training and time and work and a home life. It's ever changing, and there's always something that happens, right? We had hockey twice a week. Now I get it 5 times a week, and so it's like an ever changing thing. And I'm me, like I'm a guy that likes predictability as much as I like anything in life, varieties for the week. I like a set schedule. I get the same damn thing for every meal every day. But I think that like being a kid again and having fun with things, I think that's an important thing to find a place for that. And to remember that, and this goes for me too. This is a message for me, just as it is for anybody. But we oftentimes get paralyzed in planning, right? We wait for the perfect calendar. We wait to make the perfect plan, right? I've spent, before when I'm writing out like my season plan on spreadsheet, I've spent hours and hours doing it. And then I think like the next day, like something happened, and I was like, well, shit, that's totally out the window, right? Like something's come up for hockey and I can't do a race on that weekend. And then, things are changed. I've got, something I've got to do, a responsibility and a thing I've got to do here. I'm like, well, shit. And then you go back and then you wait to make it again. And I'm guilty of that, to wait for the perfect plan, to wait for, not waiting for the Monday, but to wait for the perfect plan, because that brings me, as an athlete, that brings me comfort to know that I have predictability. I don't do well in, I'm good at thinking on my feet. I feel like I'm great at pivoting, at being flexible, at, making, stuff like that. When it comes to untraining related things, right? Like, just making it happen. I'm very good at problem solving, but when it comes to planning for myself in training, that is an area that I'm still trying to figure out and do to my best. But because at the same time, like I have these things and I have these thoughts and feelings and goals, and I still believe my best racing is still in me because I'm still healthy enough. And I still, and I've seen it, that I've still got it. But it's like finding that, for a sustained time. And then I think again, like not being paralyzed in having the perfect plan before you get started. Like I told I think I told a story 3-4 years ago, maybe even longer than that about 8 or 9 years ago when I was talking to my cousin, she was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start January 1st because I need to get in shape before I go.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I was like, what? Wait, what do you mean you got to get in shape before you go? Isn't the point of going to get in shape? Or even, it was, people have asked, when it's that time of year for me, like when I go back to my, like my intervention, the perfect plan was to go immediately. It wasn't to wait, because the longer you wait, the less likely you are to go. Like I remember I was like, well, I got to figure out what to do with Kona. I got to email the athletes that I'm working with. I got to do this. And they were like, taken care of. There's a car in the parking lot waiting for you. And I was like, shit. That's like, I guess I got to go. Like I got, it's enlightening, right? When you're stripped of excuses, totally stripped of excuses, right? The only thing left is immediate action. Or you just sit there and you can know in your subconscious and your conscious and your heart, your mind, whatever. It's like, this is me making a blatant choice to just not. Yeah. And it was like they had that experience, and then I was like, well, shit, I got no excuses now. Fuck. Like it was like I didn't want to go so bad. Like I remember I texted you in the car on the way to treatment, and I was like, I remember I was coming up with all these reasons to like put it off for a day, because I remember I had talked to you, weeks and weeks before, and I told you I feel like I needed like to get my life. I just couldn't do it. And I was making excuses and making reasons, which is typical of being that mindset and being, in your addiction. But, it's very similar, right? To like what happens, what are we actually faced with, and what are we willing to do when we strip ourselves of the opportunity of all excuses, right? And that goes back to the same thing, like I said, about perfect plans. Well, this is just me choosing not to act. This is me choosing not to put my shoes on and get my run in. Mm-hmm. This is me blatantly choosing to not get an hour ride in when I got an hour ride and sitting on the couch and watching a show or scrolling through my phone. And that right there, when you say it like that, or you have that conversation with yourself, that's a pretty hard fucking pill to swallow, right? Because it tells you more about who you are and what you're willing to do than it does, which you and I talk about a lot, about how the world is just like layered with the acceptance of excuses, right? And self-sabotage and getting in your own way. It's almost like, it's okay. We're all doing it. It's kind of like, we've all become sedentary and lazy. It's fine. Everybody's doing it. We're all going to, die at 60, it's just fine, but not supposed to be that way, right? You're supposed to put things into action. And the longer you wait, right, to put them in action, the less likely you are to ever do that, right? And so I think, it's really important to try and find that spot to be in.
That's so great, man. I love that, being stripped of excuses. It's, think about it. How many times, really, because it's always like, I want to go work out, and it is that sort of be in shape before you hit the gym kind of thing. You want to feel like you're just ready to go and you're excited about it. And I just think to myself, how infrequent that happens with me. The run is, because I do like to put stuff off during the day, and I'm a procrastinator by nature. That comes from the addictions in my family tree, probably, based on the things I've studied and understood. But it is what it is, and I keep putting it up. Well, I'm going to feel better probably in a couple hours, so I'll just run then, and then it's not any different. And then you have to make it happen. I've been talking a lot about my plunging, and I've been doing that every day for at least a month, probably, except for one travel day. But it's like I try to get myself in the right mindset for that, right? And it matters. I think it does matter to try and get yourself wrapped around what's going to happen and respect the idea that you're going to go sit in some cold ass water. But I have a thing where I just kind of walk out. I walk down the beach and I just walk right into the water and I just go in. I don't think about it. I could come up with a gazillion excuses, but I've somehow built that pattern. And I think a lot of people do that with getting up and working out. And, you hear it every single day. I wasn't feeling it this morning, but glad I got on it. That kind of stuff. That's what I always talk about. I've used the analogy before about, we talk about T1 and T2 and transitions in racing. And I think life is built off transitions. How do you get out of bed and get up and go work? You're totally changing your body chemistry and your mindset from sleep and rest into trying to get it to go. So how do you bridge that gap? Those are the things that I think what you just said really kind of relate to. It's sort of like, all right, in that transition, you can have a million opportunities for excuses. And if you just say to yourself, well, I don't really have any excuses. This is just what's going to happen. And then you just do something. It can be anything. We always talk about training or working out, but it can just be anything. I need to go do this laundry. And sometimes that's easier than others. And I'm just fascinated by those sort of how we continually adapt throughout the day and shift our transition modes from one thing, whether it be work to caring for your kids or your dog or whatever, to going out to work out or getting in the cold plunge. And there's something beautiful about that too, because like you mentioned, the disconnect, and it's so difficult to disconnect. And how many athletes, I'm sure that you say, I got to the pool today, I forgot my watch. And then they eventually do swim, but some don't. And I sort of, well, not sort of, I totally relate to that because it is a weird feeling. You're like, damn it, I'm here. I just feel completely naked. But how far is that from really what's going on? We can't work out, or we don't think we'll enjoy this because we don't have our watch with us. I mean, I always time my plunges, and I forgot to hit start the other day, and I got in the sauna afterwards, and I'm like, I was pissed that I didn't time. And I'm like, who cares? I did it, but I guess there's not a record of it or something. But man, we just, it's tricky, man. That disconnecting, I think, is so powerful, and it's so difficult to do. I mean, to go do something without your phone, man, try that today. That you normally have it. Man, I told you when I lost my phone that one time, it was like I did not like that feeling at all. It was not good. And I'm sure people have gone through that. But like I said, if 2 days or 3 days later without the phone, I had so much more energy. It was like a anchor had been lifted off my soul. It's the weirdest feeling, man. I think that just so much of what's going on in the world, whether it be TV or computers or phones or like, digital something, it's just sapping energy, man. It's just like slowly pulling it out of you. And I think it makes everything we do even just a little bit harder.
It's when you say it like that, and, instead of trying to look and plan and expect and wait, right? Like, this is a conversation that I have a lot with, not a lot, but frequently. Just had it, earlier today with an athlete. Hey, I'd love to get, have you, if you could coach me in January, I'd love to start then. And I said, that's cool, but why not next week? Well, I got this and it's this and this. And I think that comes back from like 10 plus years ago, when I was living here before I worked for a gym, and we always called them the B-backs, right? You go in to get to talk to someone for a gym membership, and you walk in, you're like, yeah, well, hey, I got to check with my wife and just kind of see what she says, and go through like that whole thing. And then they'd say, yeah, I'll be back. I think they said 96% of people that walk out of the gym without signing up when they walk and they come in to check it out, never come back. And they never sign up for another gym, right? It's like we're paralyzed in fear to take action. And I just somebody said, like, well, what's the point in waiting? I mean, to me, it doesn't matter at all. They're going to start, if anything, it makes my life easier. Wait till January, And I was like, but why wait? Why not get started? It's like knowing that something positive is going to happen. And a lot of it comes from fear and unknown. I just want to wait till things settle down a little bit. Well, I didn't know you had that kind of control over the universe, right? It's like, I'm going to wait till things, really kind of, my schedule kind of clears. All right. See you in 2090, right? When we're all 2 feet under. It's like, there's the time is now, right? To do whatever it is you want to do, right? Instead of trying to create the perfect moment and the perfect week and the perfect plan, try, stripping yourself of all excuses and just do it and get started, whatever it is, or get out and run, go for a ride, go for a swim, sign up for a race, get the coach you've been delaying getting, because, and this is even a conversation I've had before with athletes, is I have to tell them when they're in their, inquiry, I'm sure you have too. It was like, I can tell right now that you just don't think you deserve good coaching. You don't think you're fast enough. You've been taught your whole life that you don't, you're not worthy, or you've had a bad coaching experience and, before. I can just tell that you don't believe. And I work with 2 athletes right now that happened in like the last 8 months. And I told us, I know you don't believe you deserve to have a coach or to get good coaching. And the fact is, not every athlete, every person deserves to have a good coach, to have someone on their side, to have someone help them out, to make life less stressful, to put them in the right spot, to care about how things go along the way, to do this thing. Everyone deserves that. So if you're using that excuse, throw it out the window, because it's nothing but that. It's an excuse. right? It's a story you're telling yourself that is, narrated by things that are not true and not factual. And so do it, like strip yourself of the excuses, and because a plan is better than sitting there waiting on a plan. I always joke with Allie when she'll make like a to-do list of like 60 things. And I'm like, the time it took you to make that list of 60 things, you could have already checked off 1 through 9.
Yeah.
But that's like how she like, people love doing that. People love making, or, it's like people who like to do to-do lists, even if step 1 for the day was to do the dishes and they haven't made their to-do list yet, they'll start their to-do list and they'll go, number 1, do the dishes. Oh, look at there. Check. It's like we like to go back and check the things we've already done. I think everyone's guilty of that at some. I know I've done it. I'm like, ooh, check in, check, wake up, check, brush teeth, check, coffee, check. I'm on a roll, baby. It's like this positive momentum. But yeah, it's interesting when you think of it that way. What are you left with? And then are you comfortable with that real conversation that you're having with yourself, right? Where you can't make excuses and tell yourself, a bullshit story of well, I got this. Well, I got this. Well, I got Thanksgiving coming up. Then I got Christmas. And what's the point? That's bullshit. It's a story we tell ourselves every year. And it's why everyone needs to lose more weight and get back into better fitness in January, not because of the food and the holidays, because we make excuses. And the truth of the matter is you're not, you're not 6 weeks behind, you're 12. You're 3 months behind. Because the 6 weeks you chose to do nothing and treat yourself like a carnival game, it's going to take at least 6 weeks to undo that, to get you back to where you were right now. I talk about, I had to explain it to Hayden the other day. I was like, that's a 14-point swing. It's like, what? That's a touchdown. I'm like, listen, that's a 14-point swing. They were going to score a touchdown. It got picked off and got ran back. It's a 14-point swing from up to down 7. And that's honestly how a lot of it goes, especially this time of year when we make those excuses. Again, it's not starting from there. It's a 12-week swing. 3 months, 4th of the year. It's kind of brutal when you say it like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
A 4th of the year. 3 months. Are you willing to give that up? Are you willing to get to work?
I like that 3-month swing. I really like that. Strip away the excuses. And it just occurred to me a really good way to strip away the excuses is to strip and stand in front of the mirror and kind of just check shit out, man. Because that always gets me going. It's like, oh shit, 3 months. That's a 6-month swing.
So that's a big swing.
Just give it a shot.
Just give it a shot.
Spin around. See what's going on there.
Yeah, just check it out, And don't do it at home. Do it in like one of those dressing room mirrors.
Oh yeah, that you look awful. The fluorescent lights, man. You'll just be like, you talk about a to-do list, man.
Give it a couple twirls. Give it a couple squats. See how you're feeling.
Holy crap! I was at
do a few jumping jacks. See how things working.
Yeah. Why do they do that, man? I was at a sporting goods store, and I was just trying on like sweats and a hoodie or something, and I pulled that shit off, and those lights in there, man. I was like, I didn't even recognize. I thought they were supposed to make you feel good about that.
Dude, I know. Like I was in such a rush to get to down to Nashville. I didn't know what I didn't pack anything. And so I had to walk into this place and say, hey, I need shoes, socks, pants, belt, shirt, jacket. And I'm trying things on. I go inside the dressing room and I'm like, holy shit. Like I can see a pore inside my pore.
Yeah.
Like why is the lighting like this? Like I don't feel good about myself at all right now. That's not supposed to make me like the way I look in this suit.
There needs to be Instagram filters in those dressing rooms.
Damn right there should be. Own eyes. Here, step in the dressing room before you do, slide on these pair of shades to make you look spectacular, like the reality shades. This is how I think I look.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'm like, oh, I look. You know what? Give me 4 of those.
Exactly. These would make me look
Way
unbelievable.
to boost sales. That's the way you boost sales, right there.
Yeah.
You know, not doing what some stores do, and now I can like barely fit into a double XL because everything is now made to be like a fucking extra tight. Like, how can you breathe, people? I'm a large shirt guy.
Yeah.
You go into some of these stores, and I'm like, who can breathe in this shit? Anyone. Can anyone breathe in this? And you look at, and it's even worse on the women's side. You look at the women's side, and you're like, those pair of like stretchy fitness pants are the width of my wrist.
Yeah.
That's got to make people feel good. Oh. It's the world we live in. We hope you like our fashion takes towards the end. If you're in the apparel business or want to make some shades, reach out to us. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. There's a one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching for the rest of this year or next year, stop making excuses. Stop your hands. Get to work. Find one of the coaches that's right for you. Let them take care of you and your training and yourself in 2024. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he is available. crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man.
All right, dude. I'll see you next week.
Yep. See you.